Today, we're looking at a purple ink by Noodler's Reine Mauve. Now, as always, down in the description, there's timestamps so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. It really does help this channel. Hi, I'm an ink guy. Now, Hi, I'm an ink guy. Now, if purple inks are something you really do like, there's a link down in the description to the purple ink playlist. To standardize some of the writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia as those first three. Let's start out with the 90 GSM Clairfontaine. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 5 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it and we didn't get it, and the smear test says you probably can't recover this if you smear while you're writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, the writing samples are always done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Platinum 3776 with a soft fine nib was inked up. It was used for a day and then used to take the notes for this video. Next up is the second standard paper 52 GSM Tomoe River. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is just a tad lighter than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade, 11 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade, 14 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show no color variation, and we didn't get any. And because we're writing on Tomoe River, the smear test says you can't recover this if you smear while you're writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down and immediately put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And you see that this did not travel very far up, and it's pretty dark the whole way. It's grabbing a hold of that filter paper as it moves. Now the one on the right was let dry for 10 minutes, and after 10 minutes you see that it's completely bonded with that filter paper. This is going to be a very resistant ink. The last standard paper is 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 8 seconds to dry. Now these scrubbies, far left to far right, do show some color variation because they're liars. We're not really getting it in the writing. But the smear test says you could likely recover it if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pens. This smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I'm actually surprised that any of the ink moved, darkening up that highlighter fluid. However, all of the writing itself is perfectly intact, making me feel very safe using it in a note-taking situation. Now, looking at waters, one of the reasons I was surprised any of that highlighter moved. You do see, looking carefully, where some of that ink shifted with the water, but it's really not moving at all. Now, water, I tried as much as I could, but it did not get all of that out of the pen. So we went to the pen flush, which here you see is really breaking the ink up a whole lot more and starting to show spots of white of the paper coming through. It did take pen flush to get this completely out of the converter. Not the rest of the pen, but the converter. The 1/3 bleach solution is not doing a whole lot at moving this ink out, but I didn't need it to get it out of my pen. Additional writing samples are done on paper that changes up generally from video to video. This first one is G Lalo, a laid paper that's gray in tone. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 5 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, not quite as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 5 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show no color variation because there was none, and the smear test, I don't think you could recover this very well if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, there is an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Noodler's Reine Mauve has a viscosity of 2.83, putting it on the high side of normal, but still normal. If you're interested in how the viscosity is tested and the bell curves made, then there's a link down in the description. The next writing sample is done on original crown mill paper. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is just a tad lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 4 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the stub, which is just a little darker than the extra fine. No feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 5 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both are showing no color variation because there isn't any, and the smear test says you're not recovering it if you smear it before it dries. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Noodler's Reine Mauve has an average dry time of 9 seconds, making this a very fast drying ink. The next writing sample is done on White Lines paper. Now, White Lines paper is not really made for fountain pens. It does work, but you do see that there's quite a few bleed spots that are occurring. It's not touching the page underneath, so it's not ruining that page. I just don't think you could use the back of this paper, as there's a lot of ghosting as a result of the ink getting so deep in there. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. It did very well, especially considering all the bleed spots. The extra fine has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. It's just a tad lighter than the stub, 2 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 2 seconds to dry. Really performed very well here. The scrubby for both are showing no color variation, and the smear test says without a doubt you could recover it because you're probably not able to smear it. Instead of finding inks that look like Noodler's Reine Mauve, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a nice black because it's a fairly decent purple. I chose Blackstone's Black Stump. So what do I think of Noodler's Reine Mauve? At first, I didn't like this ink. It had no character, a dull purple with no shading. Then, I used it in this 3776 with that soft fine, and bam! Shading, and a much more lively tone. So, otherwise, I would have hated this ink entirely had I not gone for this pen today. What nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? I think what I found from that 3776 is that a dry fine has the opportunity to really bring out some character of this ink and give it something really nice on the page. I also believe that a dry stub will also help give it that same pop. I hope you got something out of this video, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow when we look at Sheaffer Purple.